You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do? Doctor, will it be okay?
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, I'm getting a weird feeling with all these headlines and these Democratic Socialists talking about taxing the wealthy. It's not that I care about the wealthy. I mean, these rich guys, they make a lot of money. They do. I'm not crying a river for them. What I don't like is this witch hunt that they're doing. This headline caught my eye. Intrusive way California will target billionaires who fled hated wealth tax. This is according to the New York Post, where California is going to figure out how to go after the rich people that fled and try to get money from them. Like Google co-founder, Sergey Brin, venture capitalist and White House advisor David Sachs, Uber co-founder Travis Kalanick. From what I haven't really been following where they live and their residency, but New York Post is saying that the Golden State is going to perform intrusive residency audits to determine whether the ultra wealthy still call California home. It could cost them billions of dollars if they can't provide a convincing case to California that they no longer hold residency. All three relocated last year after the proposed 5% billionaires tax came under consideration. Now, Brin owns the title, I guess, for the third richest person in the world. He's got $270 billion net worth, reportedly purchased a mansion on the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe. And so now Nevada is his home state. Oh, Lake Tahoe's gorgeous. Gosh, it's too rich for my blood, but it's beautiful up there. And so, I'm looking at this, and like I said, what I notice happens in history is there always has to be a target. And they try to find a target that they think they'll get the majority to support. This is why I was a little grumpy with what they were doing to smokers. Now, I'm no fan of smoking. I'm no fan of secondhand smoke. I'm no fan of third-hand smoke. Smoking kills people. It kills the smoker, and it could cause devastating damage to people around them. Especially when I was taking care of kids whose parents were smoking around them, and these kids were dealing with asthma and reactive airway disease and bronchiectasis and all that. However, the way the country acted towards smokers is, okay, well, we're going to segregate you. We're going to put you in a room. We're going to tax you. You have to pay more. So we're going to tax the hell out of those cigarettes. So you basically pay more in taxes. That's how we're going to get to you because you're buying the cigarette. And then it was a way to just go after them. I remember, but this was for a short period of time, that in the D concourse, the D terminal of the McCarran Airport, which is now Harry Reid, I remember when it was newly built, there was a glass room that was maybe approximately 20 by 20, maybe 25 by 25. Not very big. And it was just very smoky. You couldn't really see who was in it. And what the airport had done, until somebody said this isn't sustainable, is the smokers. There was an area for smokers in the airport. And so to avoid smoke affecting anybody else, and you know how there's slot machines at airports, they put the slot machines in a room. And I'm looking at these people going, there's no place for them to breathe. It's all smoke. And one of my patients was one of the cashiers that was working that room, saying, I can't breathe. I need you to write me a note saying they got to put me somewhere else. Because I'm like, that's discrimination, what they're doing to people. But because the whole country was anti-smoking and they got everybody on board, smokers got the eye of mortar. Well, now there's this anti-rich sentiment. We're anti-rich. And because Chuck Schumer's rich, Bernie Sanders is rich, Nancy Pelosi's rich, Trump's rich. A lot of these people are rich. That's why they were able to quit their day job and run for office. They said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the billionaires. Okay? We are going to be anti-billionaire. We're going to be anti-Elon Musk. Well, are people forgetting he saved those astronauts' lives that were stranded? Okay, we might need some billionaires to get some work done when Biden and the government can't do it. You really want to now be anti? Why all of a sudden now people are? It's interesting because when it came to electric vehicles, Elon Musk was a hero. He's going to help us with the mandate. We're now going to be all EV and green. And then all of a sudden, Elon Musk is like, guys, Trump's not wrong. What he's saying is making some sense. All of a sudden, everybody's anti-Elon Musk. So they think that what they could do is the majority of the people are not billionaires. The majority of us are not millionaires. So they could go after the rich and discriminate against them, tax them more, make them do things that, because they could say, look, you got all this extra money. Well, one thing about the rich is they know how to keep their money. They know how to spend their money. They know how to protect their money. So they could very easily leave the country. They could very easily leave New York. Mondami saying, well, the rich will pay their fair share. Well, what did they do? They left New York. They could leave. They don't have to stay here. I've been to many countries outside of the United States. I think the United States is the best. And I would never want to leave the United States. But if they ever say Jews, Jews have to do, and then I'm not, see ya. I don't need this. I mean, I'd like to stay and fight in a way if I had to. It would I would like to, shove something up the retroperitoneum, to any Nazi or anti-Semite that wants to kick me out of my country. But if it really got to the point where they're like, look, those of you that are of a certain, demographic are going to have to do things that other people don't, then to heck with this. So as much as, like I say, billionaires have a lot of money. I don't like the eye of mortar on them. It's not fair. And I think it will breed more behavior that extends to the upper class and then middle class. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dolly, Facebook, The Dr. Dolly Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I can't tell you how many times patients have told me, and I have noticed it myself, where I get a cold, or I don't feel good, or I get a bronchitis, and I'm telling myself it's viral. It's not bacterial, it's viral. I take an antibiotic, and I feel better later that day. And we, in the medical field, recommend against using antibiotics for viruses because we need the antibiotics to work against bacteria. And when you ask your doctor or medical provider for a Z-Pak for your bronchitis, many of them will tell you no, because your bronchitis is usually 97% of the time viral, and antibiotics do not work with viruses. Yet you look at them puzzled, going, every time I take a Z-Pak, I feel better. If I take the penicillin, my sore throat goes away instantaneously. And then the doctor says, well, maybe that's placebo. Well, I've always wondered about this because, again, I don't want to breed antibiotic resistance. I don't want us to be overtaking antibiotics. I think that has really messed up our kids, and messed up a lot of bowels, and intestine, gut microbiomes. We now have millions of people saying they're allergic to penicillin, and they probably aren't allergic to penicillin. It was probably a viral rash that they had. So I'm in agreement with the healthcare narrative of don't be using antibiotics for viruses. But I've always been intrigued by why I feel better and patients feel better right away with an antibiotic. A case in point, your pink eye. Most pink eye that you get in both eyes if you have a cold or you're sick is viral. Yet within hours of taking these antibiotic eye drops, moms are like, that worked. Why? Who is asking the question? Not that we're recommending antibiotics for viruses, but who's asking the question, why are people feeling better? Is there a mechanism where these antibiotics are helping fight viruses? Now, apparently, some people in the healthcare field were like, I believe there is a mechanism. And that's why when a lot of people had COVID in the way beginning, they were giving Z-Paks to people with COVID. Now, their excuse was, well, we're preventing the secondary infection. But a lot of the doctors are like, we're going to throw everything at them. And if Z-Paks seem to make people feel better with viral bronchitis, not that we should be using it for that, we'll see what happens. Now, Z-Paks were never a cure for COVID. But you had many individuals say they had COVID and the Z-Pak, the azithromycin antibiotic, made them feel better. So is anybody really studying and looking at why? Well, I think we may have a golden opportunity here because with this cyclospora and cyclosporiasis outbreak, cyclospora is a parasite. It's an honest-to-God parasite. It's not a bacteria. Yet what are we using to treat it? An antibiotic. We're using an antibiotic to treat the cyclospora. Why? Why would an antibiotic built to destroy bacteria break down their wall, stop their metabolism, different mechanisms, how antibiotics work? Why, if we have been told for decades to never use them for non-bacterial infections, why would we be using them? Well, because there's a mechanism of action that the antibiotic has against the parasite. How does sulfa work? Well, it affects the folate synthesis. See, we get folate, humans do, from our food, our folic acid and supplementation, but many creatures and microscopic organisms have to make the folate themselves. And the trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole, or Bactrim, which I'm allergic to, I can't take. If you're sulfa allergic, you can't take this medication. But what that can do to a parasite, and who knows, maybe even a virus, affect their folate synthesis, and they need folic acid to replicate. So it's going to be very interesting to see if this is something that should be looked at. Well, some people have been looking at it. One group of studies that never really made headlines during COVID was folic acid and COVID. And this study caught my eye where, let me read it to you, where the folic acid actually allowed COVID to replicate more. And they were looking at pregnant women, where pregnant women need folic acid, right, to prevent neural tube defects in the fetus, in the baby. So you need to take a folic acid when you're pregnant. But they were concerned in some of these studies that people who had higher folic acid were more likely to die from COVID. In this latest study, this came from, not the latest study, but this was a study out of UC Davis Health and University of Alabama at Birmingham. And it was published in the journal BMJ Open. And they said that people in the UK with folic acid prescriptions were 1.5 times more likely to get COVID-19. They were also 2.6 times more likely to die from COVID-19 compared to the control group. So they looked at the impact of the anti-folate drug methotrexate. And they say that mitigated the negative effect of folic acid on COVID-19, because if you ever take methotrexate for your autoimmune conditions or your then the methotrexate, we have to supplement you with folic acid. So we know the methotrexate messes up your folic acid levels. They found that to be conducive at the time with fighting COVID. Now, I'm not saying Bactrim, which could affect your folic acid, could then be used to treat COVID. But what I'm saying is we might be able to be a little bit more flexible and allow there to be some scientific inquiry, which I know people don't want to do. Like, oh my gosh, how could you think that COVID did not come from bat soup? But it came from a lab. Okay, come on, man. I'm not that stupid, but it was all about the bat soup and the fish market. And, you know, apparently you say something that's not going with the grain of whoever's in power, and all of a sudden you're a lunatic. So and now we're all like, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. So maybe we can look at where antibiotics have a role in viruses, in parasites. I understand, and I support the thinking that you don't want to be overusing antibiotics. They're not wrong about that. But the fact that we're using antibiotics now to fight this parasite, and the fact that researchers from UC Davis, and University of Alabama, saying, look, you know, we're finding a mechanism here. We're finding make this tick. Maybe this is why these antibiotics are helping people feel. But now another thing that I think maybe the antibiotics might have is some sort of anti-inflammatory property. I can't prove it. There's not a prostaglandin or evidence of you know, a role with that. But I have these women, you'll have these women patients who say, I have a UTI. I need Cipro or an antibiotic. You go, well, let's do a urine sample and we'll go ahead and start you on antibiotic. But if you don't have a UTI, don't take the antibiotic. And they don't have a UTI, but they go, yeah, but I must have because the antibiotic made me feel better. What is behind the antibiotic making me feel better? What is it? And as much as scientists will say, well, it's placebo, it's placebo. Placebo is, well, because you're taking something, you think you're good. Not entirely, because we've tried that with people with insomnia, saying, here, just take this. And they're like, it didn't help me sleep. I mean, sometimes placebo, to the degree that we're seeing this, we can't chalk it up to placebo. And here we are looking at different COVID strains. We're looking at HIV. We're looking at, you know, there's some pretty significant viruses out there. And we don't have a lot of antivirals. We have a lot of parasites out there and not a lot of anti-parasites, parasitic medications. We are, you know, pretty blessed with having a nice silo and variety of antibiotics, which we don't want to screw up and overuse. But, you know, maybe there's something to this folic acid and affecting folic acid synthesis and binding with the at the site that the enzyme that the parasite needs for the folic acid. There's a couple mechanisms actually that the antibiotic works on. Maybe there's a way to look at, you know, how to fight some of these viruses that come our way, because the bioweapons that our enemies are going to use is not going to be something that is sensitive to penicillin. They're going to come up with something that we don't have an antidote for, but maybe we do. And we're going to have to allow a doctor or medical professional or scientist go, excuse me, can we look at this without somebody calling them names? 1-877 Dolly, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regenerations. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com.
Hot Shot Secret. Powered by Sun.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So they're trying to go after Scott Bessent. I like Scott. Our Treasury Secretary. Pretty smart guy. But he's under a little heat because they say he made an X-rated joke about Caroline Leavitt. No, he didn't. People need to calm the hell down. So, as you know, Caroline Leavitt just had another baby. And, J.D. Vance is having another baby. Scott Bessent, has been married since 2011 to his partner, and they have adopted 2 children. Or they have 2 children. So, it's nice. I like that we have, people embracing families again and having kids. I think it's a good thing. But Bessent had been, I guess, joking with Jesse Waters. And as you know, Jesse Waters likes to go a little bit off, I guess, off color with, some of his jokes. And so Bessent said the vice president's done it. The chief of staff, Caroline Leavitt, has done it in terms of having babies. And then apparently Vice President Vance and his wife Usha is expecting their 4th child in July. And Caroline Leavitt, I think, just had their 2nd child in May. And so Jesse Waters was kind of talking about how so many Republicans, they're having babies in the Trump administration. And he said, you guys are very busy. And Bessent said, we know what their hobby is. All right. Yeah. So a hobby, somebody having a lot of kids. By the way, that's not a lot of kids. That's, having a 2nd child. I have 2 children. I feel like I could have probably had more if, God would have allowed it, and, babies would have, I could feel that while working, I would be able to have healthy babies, but both of them, through the grace of God, were able to make it in one piece. I was a little nervous about trying that a 3rd time. Not that I needed fertility. I was fertile. It's just, there's always complications. When doctors get pregnant, they just seem to have complications. Just probably because we're working so much and we're exposed to so many viruses and things like that. But thank God they came out okay. So Treasury Secretary and his husband, John Freeman, they've been married since 2011. Who cares? Bessent's why can't we make some jokes? Okay. And if did Caroline Leavitt feel that, making a comment like, oh yeah, we know what their hobby is. The thing is I grew up, no, I don't want to say I grew up, but I was a young adult in the 90s. And yes, some things went really far. And I do agree that we've probably had to rein in some of the talk and the lunchroom talk and the teacher lounge talk and the water cooler talk. That, yeah, because sometimes things are not appropriate in the workplace. But to vilify somebody for making a joke, and the funny, and what's really, I think, kind of tragic about this all is there's really bad things being said and bad things being done to people, yet they are getting the same punishment for making just a simple joke, just a simple, comment. Somebody having another baby. Oh, yeah, my wife's pregnant again. Dude, get a hobby. I mean, it's just something that people always would say. It was just, and so now you got all these, these older Gen X's or baby boomers who are so used to saying these things. They're like, oh, I got to stop. I got to check myself. Devil Wears Prada 2 did actually a little bit of that, where she would say things and her younger assistant would have to remind her, you can't say those things anymore. Can't bring up suicide. You can't make these comments anymore. And so, let Scott Bessent do what he needs to do. Is he a comedian? No. Does Jesse Waters like to go where, he and Greg Gutfeld, they say things that, sometimes you're shocked are on TV. But again, it's, they're there for entertainment, and that's, I don't think news should be entertainment. I think news should be about the news, but they have followings because they do shows and they do entertaining news. That's apparently what people want these days. Me, just give me the news, okay? I really don't need anybody's commentary. I have my own opinion, but just give me the news so I know what the weather is and I know what's going on. But give Scott Bessent a break. If Caroline Leavitt doesn't care about the joke, which I am sure she has heard, and she might have even said many times, like, dude, get a hobby. It's not the biggest thing. All right, just everybody calm the hell down. Now, Mitch McConnell had posted in his absence that he's okay, that he was in the hospital for a fall, but because of how polarized Congress and the Senate is, and how every single vote narrowly helps one side or the other, there are many people very concerned about Republican Senator Mitch McConnell's unexplained absences. You have Chuck Grassley, who's in his 90s. He's running around all over the place. And so I don't give me that there's somebody too old for Congress. However, is somebody physically or mentally capable of doing their job? And are they present? We were worried about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Is she there? Is she at the Supreme Court? Or are you saying she's there so nobody has to replace her? And so people are now kind of concerned, are the Republicans doing what the Democrats did with Ruth Bader Ginsburg with now Senator Mitch McConnell? Senator Mitch McConnell suffered from a fall. He had pneumonia, and then he had hospitalization, from what we're being told. And so we don't necessarily have, from what I understand in Congress, mandatory medical or attendance reporting. But Congress is now thinking about, well, maybe we need that. If there is a prolonged absence of several lawmakers and the public is paying for them to be there, what transparency does the public get? So, it's a little tricky here. All right. After weeks of speculation, the 84-year-old Kentucky lawmaker, Mitch McConnell, did release a photo of himself in a hospital bed. People said it was fake. Didn't look fake to me. It looked like he was in a hospital bed. He could have, done a picture of him looking like he was fishing, somewhere. But it was, not, and it looks like he lost some weight. I do believe Mitch McConnell suffers from a lot of health issues, as we've seen with his purpura, or what we call senile purpura, where older individuals have easy bruising. We've seen him freeze, like we saw with Joe Biden. Some of those things are concerning. And I think, his constituents do have a right to know, is he able to work? But his team is saying that he is working. And he even said, I'll keep working hard to get back on the Senate floor as soon as possible, and I'll keep you posted on the progress of my recovery. And so Mitch McConnell looks like he's lost weight. He looks like he's been struggling, but he is still their senator. And I believe another New Jersey Representative, Tom Keene Jr., this is according to Newsweek, missed I believe, and I apologize, I'm trying to pull this up, 4 months of House votes, but he said he had a depression-related hospitalization. And so Democrats are pushing for greater accountability. Republicans have asked for greater accountability on for the Democratic side. And so Democratic Representative Richie Torres said he's going to be introducing legislation requiring lawmakers to file a public notice explaining any extended absence from voting. Under the Duty of Transparency Act, members would need to notify constituents that they will be absent, as well as roughly how long they expect to be away and whether they are still able to perform their official duties. Now, that doesn't sound bad. I mean, if you're hiring, if you're elected somebody and that person is supposed to be there to do what they need to do. Now, however, you have your proxy. So, for example, Caroline Levitt had a baby. She's allowed to have a baby. She's allowed to take off and have a baby. But then somebody else did her duties. If we're going to recommend transparency, which I kind of agree with, I do agree that everybody does get to have some medical privacy, but there has to be a way for constituents to feel that the commander in chief, has their full mental capabilities and their legislators are able to do their job. Well, then, if you are going to be away, have your proxy. And I think that, like the vice president takes over, the president can't. That would be my suggestion. 1-877-Doc-Dolly.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. World Cup coming closer to the end. We got the semifinal between England and Argentina. Some of you listen to my show live. Some of you listen to it delayed. So the Argentina-England game may be over by the time you listen to the show. They are about to get going pretty soon. And what is so fascinating about this game is there has been a feud between England and Argentina for a very, very, very long time. And not that it originally stemmed from the Falklands War or the 1986 World Cup, but those are pieces of it. And so La Mano de Dios, or the hand of God, was given. You will hear that a lot in today's game because they are alluding to a 1986 FIFA World Cup quarterfinal goal that happened when Diego Maradona put up his hand, I guess blocked the ball, but it appeared to have spiked into the goal. In the 80s, you didn't really have all the, okay, let's stop it, let's replay, let's use AI, and all the graphics you now see. I mean, I'm watching baseball, and it blows my mind how they could tell if it was a strike or not. Whereas before, it was, the ref just had to do it. The ref just had to. In fact, you're going to wonder if refs are going to be later removed and replaced by AI. Now that they have AI going, well, you see, the ref was wrong. Well, the ref was wrong. Or the ref was right. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know how these refs did it, in the olden days. But Diego Maradona was a very gifted Argentine soccer player or footballer. However, when you see his hand go up, it looks like he's spiking a volleyball into the net. That goal gave Argentina a 1-0 lead. They end up winning, but they credit the second win to Maradona's goal of the century. Now, the goal of the century was a 60-meter, 11-second run goal, where he passed 60 meters in 11 seconds and then was able to make the goal. And so it was, however, that happened, I guess, after the hand of God goal. Fans were like, no, that's not legitimate. What just happened here? But there was no replay. You didn't have that replay ability until later, where you could go and look at recordings, and VCRs were starting to be a thing then, but still. So after the game, Englanders were not very happy. And so this game today is a revenge game between England and Argentina. And we'll see what happens. France, in a shock, lost to Spain. France was supposed to be the shoo-in for the World Cup again this year. And they got their butts handed to them yesterday by Spain, which means the winner of today will play Spain on Sunday. So we'll see what happens. But for those of you wondering why they keep talking about this, we're looking back at a 40-year payback that England wants to do. I still think it's going to be Argentina who wins, but I have not done the whole medical injury report thing, so those are not my predictions. But Argentina is up against England, and England is really, really good this year. So coming up on Thursday is going to be President Trump's announcement. President Trump is going to be addressing the nation. It's going to be called a speech to the nation. It is at 9 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. And he says we're going to be really, really happy. He's got a big surprise for us that we're going to be super duper happy. So we're not sure exactly what he's going to talk about. Is it going to be about the voter ID? Is it going to be about Iran? We don't necessarily have, I guess, an agenda. But he says that it is going to be big news. So we'll see. I can't do his voice. Sorry. My kids could do his voice pretty well. So I like that he is addressing the public. I really have to credit him compared to what happened with, what we saw with Biden. I mean, he really is very vocal and I feel he's being pretty transparent as the executive branch could be. But I mean, you see him on camera all the time. Now maybe it's because he likes to be on camera. But when people are like, "Well, what's going on with Iran? What's going on with this? What's going on with this?" He talks about it. He'll have pressers. He'll have more than just the State of the Union. So we'll see what happens. But he says there's supposed to be something big. When we know more, we'll let you know. In the meantime, though, people are getting ready to protest this weekend. And what are they going to protest now? Is it the Kings? Is it no? Notice how the No Kings ended after King Charles came to America? We haven't had any No Kings protests since then, I don't believe. Because now you have King Charles here, and he's like, yeah, people like him. I was really worried that some idiot in the Congressional Hall was going to sit there with the No King sign. And it looks like everybody behaved themselves and were very respectful when King Charles was here. Which is, obviously a stark difference to a King Charles monarchy, to, Trump and America. So I think the No Kings lost a little bit of a fume. But very interestingly, though, AI data center protests are now the soup du jour. And so Humans First, led by Amy Kerner, is organizing 120 protests across 37 states to oppose AI data centers. The concerns are the electric grids, electric bills, corporate subsidies, and local impact. So the protesters are highlighting tax breaks for data centers, rising power costs, potential threats to jobs, and youth mental health. Now, they are going to not be doing what some other protests have done, where they start to ransack stores and things like that. From what I understand, this is going to be a very peaceful, proper assembly and protest. But these data centers have been really kind of shaking up communities, from Wisconsin to the state of New York. In fact, I think Human Chairs Amy Kremer, I guess, used to be a part of the Tea Party. So she is leading these demonstrations nationwide, calling for protests to pressure local, state, and federal politicians to take action against AI data centers, protect our hometowns, our wallets, and our way of life. As we know in New York has now become the first state to institute a moratorium on data centers being built. So Governor Hochul has halted construction on large new data centers for 1 year, while concerns are growing about the facilities driving the artificial intelligence boom and the rising power costs and straining water supplies and burdening local communities. Now, I don't really have an opinion on that part, but I'm wondering why nobody considered that when there were all these EV mandates and EV pushes, because electric vehicles raised power costs, strained water supplies, especially when you had a car fire, and that burdened local communities, especially those in apartment complexes that don't have a place to charge their car. That it would be nice to also see this sort of passion for that as well. But the moratorium now, puts New York in the spotlight, going, look, are they going to be up against big AI? And technology companies want to build these new data centers. They feel they need it because now that more people are using it and relying on it, yet it takes a lot of electricity. They cause pollution. It takes a lot of water to cool it down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I don't think AI is going away. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's starting to really infringe on people's communities. 1-877-LA.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.